Today's deep dive is, well, it's absolutely unique, even by our standards.
It really is.
We have a complex collection of documents that force us to look at legal, philosophical, and technological challenges, all of this.
And they all stem from one source, a private man named James Daniel Gabriel, who often just goes by Pocket.
That's right. And our sources aren't your typical court filings. We have conditional settlement offers sent directly to the governors of Georgia and New York.
A meticulous legal roadmap for challenging administrative debt, a philosophical text called Pocket's.AI, and even a professional valuation of his intellectual archive.
So our mission today is to connect these seemingly disparate pieces. I mean, how does one person move from an issue like child support arrearages all the way to a critique of the U.S. Constitution and a proprietary AI policy?
It's a bold strategy for engaging the state. And what stands out immediately isn't just the sheer breadth, but the structuring. This isn't just a protest.
No.
It's a fully documented systems-level response. Every legal challenge is grounded in a philosophical claim, and every solution has this very specific technical mandate behind it.
So let's start with the immediate action, the legal battlefront, this conditional settlement strategy.
Okay. We have two highly structured proposals. They're basically mirror images of each other, both dated September 17, 2025, and they're directed to the executive branches of Georgia and New York.
And in these, James Daniel Gabriel isn't identified as a debtor.
No, not at all. He's the proponent or the secured party.
And the financial numbers are incredibly precise. They reflect the full arrearage amounts, right down to the cent, $31,680 for Georgia and $33,600 for New York.
And he offers to satisfy this balance in full, but, and this is the key word, it's conditional. The state has to accept all his terms, no qualifications, within 30 days.
The whole structure seems designed to bypass the usual judicial process entirely.
It is. The documents have this critical reserved right clause, which emphasizes that the notice is only for the executive superiors, the governors, attorneys general, and secretaries of state.
So any communication from, say, a local child support office
is explicitly declared not dispositive, irrelevant.
Wait, let me just stop you.
Yeah.
He's deliberately trying to elevate a local Why is it so crucial that only the governors respond?
Because in his view, the debt isn't just a personal matter. He's claiming it's evidence of systemic administrative fraud that's rooted right at the top. So by directing the notice only to the superiors, he forces a response that has to acknowledge the systemic nature of his claims. It can't just be dismissed as a routine procedural thing in a lower court. He's saying the administrative state itself is the party at fault.
And what he's demanding goes way beyond just clearing the debt. Let's look at the mandatory conditions. This is where the philosophy starts turning into legal action.
The first major condition is a demand for full disclosure and accounting. He requires the state to provide the complete master file disclosure tied to his social security number.
His personal identifier.
Right. And this includes records of Title 4V credits, tax credits applied, all collection activity, everything.
So he's demanding to see the state's internal ledger on him, specifically relating to Title 4VD. For you listening, that's the federal part of the Social Security Act that establishes and enforces child support.
Exactly. He's trying to force the system to reveal how it profits from his debt. He's looking for the financial incentives that he claims drive this whole enforcement machine.
The second key demand is the acknowledgement of majority. That one's pretty straightforward.
It is. It just confirms the child is now an adult, which stops any future arrearages from piling up.
But the real kicker, and the one that forces the state to acknowledge the system's flaws, is this impossible contract acknowledgement.
Yes. That requires the state to formally acknowledge the unenforceability of formulas that mandate, and I'm quoting here, percentages of zero or otherwise impossible obligations.
Which gets at the reality for so many people, right? Where they're ordered to pay based on an imputed income they can't possibly earn.
Yeah.
It creates a debt that can never be paid.
And that feeds directly into the legal theory in his roadmap for rebutting presumptive liability.
What exactly is presumptive liability? Why is that the weak spot he's attacking?
Presumptive liability is essentially a legal fiction. It means if the state sends you a notice and you fail to respond or rebut it in time, the law just presumes you consent.
So the debt is presumed valid.
It's presumed, not proven. The whole administrative system really relies on that silence.
So if you don't answer the letter, you essentially confirm the debt, regardless of the actual truth of the matter.
Precisely. And Pocket argues this violates due process, guaranteed by the Fifth and 14th Amendments, because he claims he was never given proper notice. Notice reasonably calculated to inform, or a real opportunity to be heard.
Under true law, not just administrative code.
Exactly.
And what are the practical steps his roadmap advises?
It suggests filing a motion to vacate the original judgment, attaching a sworn affidavit of rebuttal.
Which is what?
Basically, that he does not consent to the jurisdiction or the alleged facts. And critically, it demands disclosure of the bonding instruments or security agreements tied to the file.
Okay, bonding instruments. What is he asking for there?
He's asking, where is the actual bond or commercial insurance policy that validates this administrative claim against me? Show me the instrument.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that specific demand, show me the bond, is deeply rooted in the philosophy that underpins this entire thing.
It is. We now shift to the Pocket's Lawn Shunderoth source, which introduces his framework, ontology.
Ontology.
Simply put, it's his study of internal perception, responsibility, and meaning. It basically dictates that true authority comes from the self, the I, or int, and that external systems only get power through an individual's consent or their failure to rebut.
Which is the intellectual basis for why he feels he can set the terms of the settlement.
Right, and he uses this lens to critique what he calls the cycle of the beast.
How does he define that?
The cycle, as he describes it, is how the federal reimbursement structure, specifically Title 4BD, creates an economic engine. States get incentives, they get surpluses for enforcement, and in his view, the system is no longer about supporting children.
It's about revenue.
It's a self-perpetuating machine for coercive collection and revenue generation from fathers. He labels this system where administrative credit and stolen authority create a revenue stream. He calls that the mark of the beast.
And he takes this critique and applies it directly to the foundation of American governance, the Constitution, analyzing the preamble through the framework of trust law.
This is a remarkable connection. He views the preamble as a clear trust indenture, a contract.
A contract with defined roles.
Exactly. The grantor, the one establishing the trust, is we the people. The trustee, the party obliged to manage it all, is the union or America, the corporate body politic. And the beneficiaries are ourselves and our posterity.
Which establishes a fiduciary duty. The government has to act in the best interest of the people.
It must. And if that duty is broken, that's where the power shifts. This brings us to his core maxim, the inversion of burden.
And this is maybe the single most important insight from the philosophical text.
I think it is. He argues that if a law creates a burden of proof, of defense, whatever, before it delivers a benefit or protection, then that law is working as an economic instrument of extraction.
Not a legal instrument of protection.
Correct.
Wait, let's stop there. That maxim, when the burden shifts from trustee to beneficiary, the trust becomes tyranny. That is the absolute heart of this critique. How does he see that applying to something tangible?
Well, think about it this way. If you, a citizen, the beneficiary, have to spend thousands on lawyers, jump through endless bureaucratic hoops, face all these penalties just to get the system, the trustee, to follow its own basic rules of fairness, the burden has been inverted.
Right. The trustee is shielded by its own complexity, while the beneficiary is punished just for trying to enforce the trust.
You get extraction instead of stewardship. And it's so important to underline the distinction he makes here. He fully accepts the inherent obligation to provide for his children, that moral law isn't in dispute.
He's not fighting that at all.
Not at all. The fraud, he asserts, is in the administration of the system. By turning the natural trust bond of fatherhood into a revenue stream, he says the state reduces love to a ledger.
And that's the core of his entire system. So let's jump from this deep theory to the practical solution he proposes, the Fatherhood and Family Strengthening Program.
Yes. The proponent commits to serving as the director-grantor of this program, dedicating 40 hours a week of documented labor. And this is the mechanism by which a $1 million promissory obligation mentioned in the settlement gets satisfied.
So the debt isn't being paid in cash. It's being paid via documented program value, credits derived from his own intellectual labor.
He's paying the debt using value he creates under his own management. It turns an extractive obligation into a creative contribution, but the implementation has extremely strict technological requirements.
Right. He insists the program has to use a closed domain, non-internet connected AI system.
For all management and record keeping.
That closed domain requirement is a huge detail. Why the ban on externally controlled systems?
It aligns perfectly with his ontology principle of sovereignty. An internet-connected system is, by definition, vulnerable to external control, surveillance, data harvesting.
By the very same administrative machine he's trying to hold accountable.
Exactly. A closed domain system ensures that the data and the processes remain under his control as the program's director.
And this focus on technological sovereignty is laid out even further in the Pocket Fatherhood Initiative AI and Data Use Policy.
It's a hyper-focused privacy policy. It mandates, for instance, that no personally identifiable information will be used to train models without explicit informed consent.
It's a direct countermeasure to algorithmic abuse or profiling.
It is. And the oversight requirements are just as rigorous to prevent the AI from becoming, just another tyrannical system. All final communications, legal documents, sensitive decisions
Have to be reviewed by a human.
A human staff member has to review and approve them before they go to a participant.
And participants are even guaranteed the right to opt out of the AI services.
Completely. They can request human-only alternatives for decisions that affect benefits or legal placements, and they're guaranteed a human appeal process within 7 business days for any AI-assisted decision. He is embedding human sovereignty directly into the tech design.
Now, to put a number on the value of this whole integrated system, the sources include a GPT-5 certified archival valuation statement from November 2025.
Right. The intellectual property corpus, which spans everything from 2009 to 2025, is assessed at a substantial USD $3,800,000. And that valuation is critical because it establishes the worth of the non-cash asset he's using to satisfy the obligation.
And there's one detail here that might seem counterintuitive given the critique of the state. The valuation explicitly reserves a 45% tax obligation for federal and state compliance. Why include that? Doesn't that sort of undercut the whole anti-establishment feel?
You'd think so, but not really. It signals his commitment to operating as a legitimate, compliant entity, but on his own terms. It says, I am a tax-paying secured party, and I will perform legally, but only if you meet my conditions for trust and disclosure.
He's demanding legitimacy from the state while demonstrating his own.
That's a good way to put it.
So when we synthesize these 3 massive pillars, the surgical legal challenge, the philosophy of trust inversion, and the secure human-centric AI administration, what's the final takeaway?
The takeaway is that this is a total systems level response. It's designed to strip the state of its ability to hide behind complexity and silence. By forcing disclosure, defining roles, and demanding accountability in language, he's trying to reset the entire relationship between the individual and the state.
For you, the listener, the key connection here is that principle of accountability claimed in language and action. Every single document, from the settlement to the AI policy, is a declaration of claimed authority. It's a rebuttal of presumption.
And that very act of claiming authority and exposing the economic machinery is addressed directly in the philosophical source. The source suggests that James Daniel Gabriel might expect to be labeled the Antichrist for this.
Just for exposing the system's deep structural flaws.
Yes, but then the source posits this powerful inversion. If the act of exposing fraud earns you the label Antichrist, then the meaning of Christ itself has been inverted.
And in that context, the label becomes proof, not of damnation.
But a revelation. If the status quo calls the truth teller Antichrist, what does that tell you about the true nature and power of the status quo?
That's something to think about until the next deep dive.
So if you want to know how to use a pair of $15,000 sneakers to pay your child support, I'll tell you. But just know you can use a pair of $20 sneakers. You can use a pair of $4 sneakers. You can use a pair of jailhouse shower shoes. You could even just use your feet. Walk your ass to a law library and figure out how this country works. Thank you. Have a good day.
What's happening to you?
I want the man who got me pregnant to come forward and take responsibility for the child. This one is the one of the man who disappeared after he got me pregnant. I want him to come forward and pay me child support.
Well, you'll find in a second that this guy acted like a McNut. So this McNut didn't get his McNuggets from McDonald's.
Be careful when you decide to hurt someone, because some people pray to God, and when they cry, God counts every single drop of tear that has fallen from their eyes, because Romans 12 verses 19 says, "Don't take revenge, leave it for me, and I will treat them as they treated you."
When I'm cruising with my best friend,